So Jack has taken the bass apart yesterday. So you can see the rib structure here. So there's quite a lot of work to do to that, but we'll look at that a bit later on. So the next job for us is to mark up and start to graduate the plates. So I mentioned a little bit yesterday, but you'll be able to see that this is probably about 15 millimeters or maybe 3/4 or 2/3 of an inch thick. So it's way, way thicker than you'd ever need it. The reason we do that is that we have full control then over what graduations we have. So the graduations are the thickness of the wood, and that's key for how the instrument speaks and sounds. And as I said, we will adjust what we're doing thickness-wise depending on the wood that we've got. The idea being is that there's a sort of classic Martin sound and feel, and that's what we try to get to every time, but we will get there by doing very different things to two different pieces of wood. So yeah, the first job is for me to mark this up, and then Jackie's going to graduate it, and then a bass bar will go in, etc. But this just kind of gives you an idea of how much we do to these instruments. So it really is a blank canvas. So some of the edge work's finished off, although we do a lot of work on it. But basically all the internals and everything else, the bit that really matters for the sound, is done by us here. So I suppose the first thing to look at is, why is wood different? Now, this piece of wood is fairly soft. Actually, it's really nice, light, not too hard tone wood, and it's actually got, I mean, I can see bits of it because my eyes are trained to look for it, but there's actually beautiful figure in here. When I say figure, that's like a mascatura, they call it mascatura figure, bear claw, hazel pine, but it's basically, it looks like little worms, and you can just see them, well, you'll certainly see them as we go on and we start to varnish. So this piece of wood is really nice, beautiful tone wood. What makes wood hard and soft? So there's a few things. How much resin there is in the wood. So is it quite a resinous tree? I suppose the species of tree also. So this is Carpathian mountain spruce. We always use spruce. We used to use, or have used before, especially when my dad, you know, when it was mostly my dad, we use fir. And fir is more bendy and less reactive than spruce, so we don't use it. But basically, yeah, this is really nice spruce. So what you've got is, you can see that there are little lines, and those are the grains of the wood. Each one of those grains is a year's growth. So what you've got is, the dark part is the winter growth, and the light part is the summer growth. So you would imagine that this tree was somewhere it was fairly moist, fairly mild, probably quite far down the mountain. If you get something you can almost get it where it's the winter growth is as wide as the summer growth, and that would be maybe that they have a more a sort of longer winter where it's there's maybe a bit more room for growth, and then maybe the summer it doesn't really get very hot either, so maybe quite far up the mountain. So you get lots of different trees. The other thing to think is, obviously this tree, if you said 10 years is probably on this part about that much. So we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. I'd say probably this tree, certainly there's about 120, 130 years worth of growth there. And this is sort of medium wide grained wood. And if you think it was narrow grained, you can get it where it's like you've got 300 years worth of growth on the front. So obviously what that's leading to is that two pieces of wood, although a bass front could always look the same, actually they literally could be so different. So I know this wood quite well, and this is going to be really good for the 4-string bass. I probably wouldn't have picked this one if we were making a 5. I'd want it to be a little bit harder wood. If it's too hard for bass, I don't think it's great. I think actually, the bass is a bit of a different animal than the other violin family instruments. So I would say that this is a really nice choice. That doesn't mean to say if it's different than this, what we will do again is adjust what we're doing to still make it sound really good. But this is just what we've chosen. This is what the bass was made from. So let's have a look at the graduations. And in fact, the very first thing that's going to happen after we do, before we do the graduations, is there's these wings here on the sound holes. Now, our style is to sort of drop this into the instrument. Some of the old English makers, John Lott, etc., would drop this into the instrument, you know, quite a lot. And I think it looks really stylish and really nice. So the very first thing that's going to happen is this area here that is going to get taken down and roughly blended in. So it'll get fine finished when when the bass is together. But we just start off by taking this down a little bit. And yeah, the next thing to do is to start to mark up the inside. So you can see it's very thick, you know, it's almost not been planed at the edge here. So there's lots of different ways people will do their graduations. In fact, let me just turn it round. So it's strange, you always look at things in a certain way, and I'm used to looking at things this way, so it gets confusing otherwise. Basically, people do graduations in different ways, and I think the big thing that we will do here is we'll have an idea of what we think is the right thing to do. But we will keep feeling and playing around and seeing where we end up with it. So the first thing to do is I will mark, I'll just tilt that slightly that way. I will mark across here and here. This is where the bridge goes, obviously in this area. So obviously you've got the bass bar down that side. And then you've got the soundpost going in this side. So what I'll do is I'll leave an area around where the soundpost goes. So we said somewhere around here. And again, this is all just done by feel. There isn't any like template that we use for this. It's just a rough kind of idea of where we think. So that's the first thing. So I think that needs to be, I'm going to put 9 plus. And so that's going to give a little bit more support to the soundpost area. And then this wood, as I say, it's fairly soft. So some of these graduations to someone might look like we've gone a bit mad, but actually we haven't. It's just that the wood is very reactive, and you know, you've the bit of depth of sound that you want. If you make it too thin, it's not only is it structurally going to be no good, but also it's you know, it's not going to give. It's going to give a bit of a thinner sound. So I'm going to say that we're probably going to want to go 8 plus. So 8 plus is 8 millimeters. And what I'm saying is, don't go any less than that. We may even, I think, looking at it, want to go 8.5. Number one rule of woodworking is that you can take it off, but you cannot put it back. So you're much better off leaving everything too thick, giving it a feel, giving it a bend, playing with it, and then deciding actually the best thing for us to do is to take more off. So then I'm going to have a stripe here. I'll tend to go in stripes. So it's almost like that's the centre, and it goes in sort of, it gets thinner as it goes out. The bass itself is like a drum head. You could look at it and think it's a subwoofer, but it's not. The whole thing vibrates. So this is obviously, the vibration is coming down the bridge into this part. So this is the bit you want to support, and it's going to get the most vibrations. And obviously as it fans out, maybe the vibrations are going to get slightly less. So if it's slightly thinner, it's going to continue to vibrate the whole thing. Also, the strongest part of the bass is close to the edge. The strongest, probably the hardest part of the bass, and the bit you could almost make nothing, would be here, because you've got so much on the edge, and obviously you've got the grains are protected top and bottom here. So that sort of area like that is going to be really hard. Somewhere out in here is going to be the least strong. So you want to bulk that up a bit. So I'm going to go 8.5, 9 plus, that sort of is for Jack to feel what he thinks the right thing to do is. Then we're going to have a little bit of 8 here. And then I think we're going to go 7.5 on the rest of this. So I've got my bass bar here. Now, I think that looks, so that kind of is about where we want to be. However, I have a feeling that sort of in some of these areas, like out round here, we might just want to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to put a little plus there. It's like a little map if you try and work out what I've done. And then, so I'm going to have a little plus here. So this is kind of, you know, we might even end up wanting being 8/9 out here, depending. So what Jack will do is he'll probably sort of get this kind of close, get it all kind of close, leave this a bit heavier, and then you'll see we'll have a play with it and a feel, because that's the most important thing. Does it react properly? Does it feel good? What does it feel like? So you can have an idea, but don't stick to it. And if anything, take it all down. And if you're, you know, if anybody's making a bass, firstly, they might have a different idea. But secondly, if you think this sounds interesting, just go steady, take bits off and give it a feel like it wants to react a bit, and it doesn't want to feel too light, it doesn't want to feel too heavy. And obviously that changes if it's a small bass, big bass, 5-string, 4-string, and what the wood is like. So this might dramatically change completely depending on what the wood is like. So again, I'm going to go a little bit 8, and I'm going to go, I'm going to go 7.5 in here, 7, 6.5, because obviously this area is very strong, it's got block, etc. So you can go a little thinner here, and then the idea being, this is vibrating, this is the centre of the vibration. If obviously it's thinner as it goes out, that should carry the vibration out, so the whole of the front is working like a drum head, basically. So, and again, I think really we want to just keep an eye on this bit, and just keep an eye on that bit, yeah. So this could end up being 8, 9, and then obviously what we would do is we wouldn't just do a big lump of 8, 9, and then 7.5 there, or 7, or then less here. We will basically give it a feel, blend it together so it'll look really nice on the inside. But what we've done is we've just been a bit careful in these wing parts, just to keep an eye. And that's more, you know, Jack's a very experienced guy at doing this. So what he will do is he kind of knows what I've done, what I mean here, and he'll keep checking. I'll keep checking until we're happy that it's just right. And the idea of doing all these things is that this could completely change on a different bass, but actually on this one, this seems like the right thing to do. So we will see how that comes out. I also always write sound holes down, just so we don't forget to take these parts down here. So yeah, so basically Jack's going to get this sorted out, and we'll have a look. So then we just move on to the back. That's the front. And you can feel actually it's really heavy at the moment. It's so thick, you know, it weighs a bloody ton. So that's that. And then the back. Now the back's much lighter. We leave these, get these done a bit thinner for us. So this actually feels pretty good. I'm just going to get some calipers because I would like to know what I'm looking at here. And again, this is very much done by feel. Same thing as the front. You can see the beautiful figure in this. That's really nice. This wood again is not too hard, so I'm going to want to be a bit steady on it. The more figured the wood is, generally I'd say the harder it is. But this although it's very nice big regular flame, I know just from looking at it that this wood is not like concrete. And again, I think for bass, you know, if you use really hard wood back and front, not good. If you use really hard wood on the front and a really soft back, you know, you can mix it up a bit, but this is lovely. This is going to be really nice. The other thing you can see, there's a little knot here. The colour of that will disappear when we varnish. You'll see that will just literally, it'll just be a little mark. But I always think if you've got a nice piece of wood, it's a shame not to use it if it's got a little sort of fault like that, and that's part of the character. If you see the old instruments, they have all sorts of things like that. You also see in old instruments, especially in the front, they use literally like firewood sometimes, or floorboards, or beams, or you know, like literally a big piece of something you'd never use today. And if they've dealt with it correctly, actually the bass can sound incredible. So that just does prove the point that, you know, even the quality of the wood is half the battle. The other half of it is what you do to it. So it's the inside. So let's have a little look at what we got. So that's probably pretty good. And the reason I'm checking is that I can tell by the weight of it that I want a bit more to come off, but I don't quite know. I just want to make sure we do the right amount. So that's sort of 10 in the middle. 8, 7, 8.5. So 7.5. 8. And that does react a little bit. I just think it needs a little bit of a haircut in the middle, and that's going to be good to go. So so I'd say make anything can be 9 plus. So basically I think what we're going to do is knock down anything that is above 9. So there's a few bits of 10 in here and 10 in a bit. And obviously you can see it's been very roughly planed, roughly sort of roughed out for us. So we will basically, it needs a good sand anyway. So there's going to be a 1/2 mil everywhere to come off. At least, just by getting this nice and smooth. So I think get everything down a little bit under there. And I'd also say anything, and if you notice, I'm kind of going more like a target on this, because it's obviously got to support the soundpost, which is going to be in here somewhere. And I think this kind of works better like this. So I think that's going to, anything over 8.5 needs to come down. And then I would say the rest of it's probably okay, it kind of feels. Yeah, so I think basically what we're going to do is by the time we've given this all a good sand out here, that's going to be nice. We're just going to take everything down a little bit in the middle, and that's going to be good and strong. But there's bits of it, it's still like 7 and 8 out here. You've got, you know, I think that's going to that should just work nicely. In fact, I might just bring this up here a little bit. And again, it might look a bit of a mess, but Jack will understand what I mean when he's doing this. And again, we will keep checking this and seeing what we've got. So that's kind of where we've ended up. I have basically, so leave this, and that just means give it a good sand. And yeah, so obviously Jack will put this on the ribs and mark the edges down and everything, and we'll go from there.